Joining us now from Laredo, Texas, Congressman Henry Cuellar. Welcome back to Fox News Sunday, sir. Glad to have you. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning to you.
Congressman, let's kick this off with the White House this week saying that there are no plans now to extend Title 42, saying that it's following CDC guidance on this. You represent border communities in Congress. They are directly affected by this. The number of people coming over our border as of March, already staggering numbers, averaging more than 7,000 a day. Government models predict that could swell to as many as 18,000 a day if this is lifted. What are you telling the White House that you want to see happen here?
You know, what we're dealing in the Laredo sector and the Valley sector is that about 60% of the men and women in green are not on the field. They're not at the border, but they're actually at the border processing centers. So think about this. It's like having a school and we're only teaching with 40% of the teachers, and the other 60% are not teaching. That's what we're seeing, except it's in law enforcement. So what we're seeing is large numbers coming in. The messages that are going out to the smugglers and to the migrants is that on May 23rd, you can go ahead and come in, and Border Patrol is only working with 40% of its men and women, and that provides us a very difficult situation down here at the border. You and other Texas Democrats have shared your concerns with this White House. Are they listening? You know, we told them, but they said they're going to continue with Title, lifting the Title 42. But the thing is, yes, they're listening to the immigration activists, but my question is, who's listening to the men and women in green and in blue? And more importantly, who's listening to the border communities, the sheriffs, the landowners, the rest of the people that live on the border? Yesterday, I was in Stark County. You mentioned Roma. I was in Roma, where they found that two-year-old young kid. And I was in Roma, and I was with a lot of people there, not only public officials, but other folks. And none of them said, yes, go ahead and lift Title 42. None of them said, open up the border. They're very concerned because they're in the front line, and they're the ones that I think we need to listen to. We need to listen to the border communities. So is it your take then, Congressman, that this White House is ceding too much power to the CDC on immigration? You know, it's Title 42, it's a health issue, but then it's all interrelated. It's all interrelated. You know, this message of lifting Title 42 is going to go straight to the criminal organizations. And remember, the last 6 months, there were over 1 million encounters, and doesn't even include the getaways. You multiply that by an average of $8,000. That's over $8 billion that they made, and that doesn't even include drugs. So it's a message that's going out there. And what makes it difficult is you got people from Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and the problem is those countries are not being very cooperative, and we try to return those folks. We got to extend the perimeter. The U.S.-Mexico border should not be the 1-yard line. We need to make sure that if somebody passes through a country where they can ask for humanitarian relief or they can ask for asylum, then they need to stay in those countries instead of passing countries all the way up here to the border and pass countries that can provide them asylum and relief. But they only think that the only place they can get asylum is in the United States. Well, sir, you are sharing your concerns, and Axios is reporting Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas privately told members of Congress that he's concerned about how this White House is handling this issue. Have you heard concerns directly from him or from anyone at DHS? Well, you know, I certainly have heard concerns from the men and women down here at the border. They're very, very, very concerned because, you know, the plan has some good parts, but the other part of the plan as to how to deal with Title 42 being lifted is they're talking about erecting more border processing centers. They're talking about adding more medical officials down here. They're talking about transportation. So the metric that's being used is how do you move the migrants from the border over to the interior of the United States? I mean, look at even San Antonio, that's 150 miles away. They're getting people from Eagle Pass, Del Rio, Laredo, Uvalde going over there, and they're getting about 200 people dropped off at the bus station every day. They're getting about 300 to 500 people dropped off at the airport. Do the math. That's only one city away from the border. So it's starting to feel, communities are starting to feel the impact that we see here at the border. Being 1,500 miles away from the border is very different being here at the border. And yesterday I was with 3 border sheriffs and other folks. They do not want to see Title 42 lifted. So who's listening to the border communities is my question.
Well, there's a big meeting happening tomorrow at the White House. The Congressional Hispanic caucus will be meeting with President Biden about this. Where do they stand on this? Do you expect a tense conversation?
Well, I think there's about 2 members of the Hispanic congressional delegation. It's myself and Congressman Vicente Gonzalez, who's also at the border, that feel that Title 42 should be stayed in place. And the rest of them are going to say, go ahead and lift it. But again, my question is this. How can you ask for international travelers to make sure they're vaccinated or even show the COVID-19 negative test if they fly in? How can we have the emergency, federal public emergency extended to July 15th and say there's a pandemic going on in the United States, but at the border, everything's fine, and just let people into the United States? Those are mixed messages.
Final question on Title 42. Multiple states with Republican attorneys general are suing to keep Title 42 in place, Congressman. Do you think that there are people inside of this Biden White House maybe hoping the White House loses on this issue to provide some cover for them to say that a federal judge is forcing them to keep 42 in place?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a debate. If you talk to more of the career folks, they will tell you that they want to keep Title 42. But you got some folks with a lot of immigration activist experience that feel the other way. So I think that will give them a cover without a doubt. And maybe even Congress, if we can add that amendment to the COVID relief bill, could provide that cover.
All right. Meanwhile, while American families still deal with spiking inflation, particularly high gas prices, the Biden administration says it will resume selling new drilling leases on public lands this week. All this after a court overturned a Biden executive action from last year that you, sir, criticized, saying banning responsible leasing would cost jobs and GDP growth. But the president's climate envoy, John Kerry, says he hopes this move is temporary and that companies are sitting on a lot of leases already. Here he is this week.
I think that the president knows that many of these leases that have been granted are simply not going to be drilled in.
Well, I suppose there wouldn't be much worry then, but do you agree? Is he right?
Well, certainly one of the things that we're seeing is that, we have to be energy independent. And look, we need to understand one thing. Our companies are doing a much better job than other companies outside the United States and other countries. So we need to make sure we do it in a clean way. But I understand that if we're sitting there, so what is the concern? Let's go ahead and allow that opportunity to do domestic drilling so we can have jobs here and certainly make sure we don't depend on another country when it comes to energy. We do a much better job at producing energy. And again, we have to make sure we take advantage of that for our economy and for our independence.
Well, that is just one area, another area where we are seeing many Democrats break with this Biden White House on multiple fronts. And now, based on the president's most recent polling, looking out into November, do you think Democrats' control of the House is in jeopardy this fall, Congressman?
Certainly as a Democrat, I'm going to do everything to make sure that the Democratic majority stays. We do have some headwinds, as you know. And again, we got to make sure that we're all working together. And right now, some of the actions by the administration is not helping Democrats. Certainly in South Texas, when it comes to oil and gas, when it comes to immigration policies, that has an impact on it. But as a Democrat, I certainly want to keep the Democratic majority.
Congressman, the president and several cabinet members went on the road this week to pitch the new infrastructure law to voters ahead of the midterm elections. But some Democrats are saying it's not resonating, including Senator Mark Kelly, who says people get the idea infrastructure spending helps, but says, quote, "I know people don't focus on that. They focus on what else is the next problem. It is the rising cost of gasoline." So, Congressman, how do you campaign on the successes Democrats have had this cycle when voters are mostly focused on these big problems?
Well, it depends on what part of the country you're at, because in my area, infrastructure is very important. For example, Laredo is the largest inland port, so infrastructure is very important. So we got to look at every district and see what's important to that district and campaign on that. Yes, infrastructure is important, but there's the issues of border issues that are very important to us, and certainly energy, being an energy district, is key to us also. So you look at the district and campaign on that area, or if you're a senator, look at the state itself.
All right, Congressman, a lot going on, and also an investigation that we have been following. A statement was put out by your attorney saying this week that you were not the target of an FBI investigation after your home was raided by officers in January. Are you involved at all in any ongoing investigation, sir?
Well, look, I have deep respect for law enforcement. I got 3 brothers who are peace officers, so I have deep respect for law enforcement. We're going to cooperate. You saw what the attorney said, and we're going to follow that advice.
So you're going to cooperate, meaning there's an ongoing investigation?
We will cooperate with law enforcement when they ask us to do that.
Why was there a raid?
Well, again, as I said, we will cooperate if there's any questions on that issue.
Okay. Congressman Cuellar, we really appreciate you joining us to cap a very busy week and heading into another one. Thank you very much for speaking with us this morning, sir.
Thank you so much.
Okay.